Everyone, welcome to the December 12th Goffstown Select Board meeting. Would you please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the acceptance and correction of minutes from 11/28/22, public and non-public.
I'll make a motion to approve the 11/28/22 public and non-public minutes with corrections if needed.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Mark to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. We have one announcement. The last day to accept 2023 zoning petitions is Wednesday, December 14th, 2022. All petitions must be signed by at least 25 registered voters that reside in the town of Goffstown and in correct warrant article form in accordance with RSA 675:4. Petitions must be submitted in writing to the Select Board or Administration Office located at the second floor of the Town Hall at 16 Main Street, Goffstown, 03045, during regular business hours. Hours are Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 p.m. Petitions submitted electronically or by fax shall not be accepted. If you have any questions, please see the Planning Department or call 497-8990, extension 117. Derek, we'll start with you.
Okay, I am at tab 7.
Right.
You have your committee meetings scheduled for the next 2 weeks. Wednesday at 9 a.m., Highway Safety Committee's meeting at the police station.
Yep.
At 10 a.m., the Joint Loss Safety Committee will meet here at Town Hall.
I got that.
7 p.m., Conservation in Town Hall, room 106.
Yes.
And then reminder, next Monday is your last meeting of 2022 here in this room. And Wednesday, 6:30 p.m., the library trustees are scheduled to meet at the public library.
I'll be there.
At your next page, you have your consent agenda. You have an employee status report, a dispatcher, successful completion of probationary period. And this afternoon, we did add a seasonal DPW employee for hire, or actually rehire. You have an event permit for Granite State Health and Fitness Foundation, Glen Lake Swim, August 13th, 2023, from 8 to noon. You have rights to inter at Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 3, Lot X8A. Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 2, Lot 54A and 55A. And West Lawn Cemetery, Section 1991, Cremation, Lot 14. You have an off-cycle betterment assessment. This is a payoff for the Lynchville-Danis Park Drinking Water Project, the amount of $2,662.88. And finally, you have a letter to the New Hampshire Department of Safety, Division of Motor Vehicles. This authorizes the release of state police reports to Primex when a town vehicle is involved.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
At your next page, the men's pickup basketball group have donated $1,000 to the Parks and Rec revolving fund, and they'd like to use that, offer that to the town to help offset basketball height adjuster systems that's used by our first and second grade basketball program.
Make a motion to accept the donation, $1,000 from the Goffstown Men's Pickup Basketball Group to be deposited into the Parks and Rec revolving fund in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 31:95-E.
Second.
Motion by Carlos, seconded by Jim. One question. Can they direct? Is that,
Can they direct? They've asked to put it towards the Parks and Rec revolving fund. You could go back to them and vote to not accept it and then ask if you wanted to do it in some other way. But
no, but I'm saying, this, when we do this like this, are they, Parks and Rec committed to using that particular funds for that?
yes.
Okay. So, any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Next page, you have a budget update from the finance director. On November 29th, the budget committee met, and there were 2 lines that were reduced within the town's operating budget. The budget committee will hold their public hearing on Tuesday, January 10th at 6 p.m., and there's a snow date of Thursday, January 12th. The question that we have for the board this evening is we would like to set the date for the town's deliberative session. The school will be meeting on Monday, February 6th at 6 p.m. in the auditorium with a snow date of Wednesday. We're proposing that the town meet on Tuesday, February 7th at 6 p.m. at the high school auditorium with a snow date for Thursday, February 9th at 6 p.m. The only real change from the past would be the meeting time. And
I question that myself. Is that,
we found that a lot of our municipal committees, budget committee and other meetings are asking to move to 6, but we'll leave it up to the decision of the board, how you'd like to.
yeah, I'm just thinking about people getting out of work and then wanting to go to the meeting at 6 o'clock, pushing it. If you don't think so, we don't think it's gonna hurt our attendance. Attendance is terrible anyway.
Let's try this, maybe it'll,
That's not gonna make it any better.
well, you never know.
All right, so you wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the finance director to schedule the town's deliberative sessions for Tuesday, February 7th, 2023, with a snow date of February 9th, 2023,
Second.
At 6 o'clock.
at 6 o'clock.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mark, seconded by Collis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
abstaining, motion passes.
We don't have time quite now for the draft encumbrance list, but there is one item I did skip because it was not in the packet, and this is the annual report. In the past, we as staff have brought forward the theme and sought out pictures to match that, and my thought was what the town of New Boston does is they actually, their board decides upon a theme and they put it out for 30 days and have citizen submissions for that, and I thought that might be something that you'd like to do, and also ask if you'd like to do something similar for the Volunteer of the Year award that you do.
I like the idea for the theme, the cover.
Yep.
I'm not quite sure about the volunteer of the year. Should we ask maybe the department heads or us if we have ideas first?
We could do that.
I can do that and bring that to you at the meeting next week and see if we can get any.
So we have to come up with a theme.
What I'll do is I'll come up with the rules, I guess, for submissions and have that for you in your meeting back in next week.
Yeah. We do have a meeting next week, you had asked.
Right.
Still don't have to, we've got a couple minutes here. Normally at 6:10 we have public comment. Is there anybody here at this time for public comment? Seeing none, if somebody shows up, we'll let them speak. Next up would be the library trustees in reference to the bond article. She must be thinking of talking a lot. She brought a big bottle of water there.
Well, she's not throwing a challenge down to you, hopefully.
That bottle would work. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Samantha Holman, Chair of the Library Board of Trustees. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm here tonight to review and ask for your support in putting the library's proposed warrant article on the March ballot. You have a copy of the article in your packet tonight and some familiar documents as well, including the status of the project, which includes steps the board has taken to date, a square footage comparison relative to surrounding towns and their respective libraries, and the concept plans, and we've also included the bond schedule for your reference.
So the project is now $7,200,000.
Correct.
Questions? So we got, this is the bottom floor, this is the, okay.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead, Jim.
There, I don't know which page it is, but there's a page that has the average payments per year. And this is not, I guess this would be for Derek or someone, but, so that we have, as I understand, we have 4 options if we wanted to do this. And my question is, how much, those payments, annual payments of $680, $705, $100,000, what does that do to the tax, rate, that amount of,
I can do a quick calculation. It's a little bit difficult because next year we're going to have a revaluation.
Yeah.
And we stand to see a significant impact, but if we disregard that, I can do a quick calculation to give you an idea. Usually we say about $17,000 is a penny. So if you take and it's tough to do these. So the top one, again, there's a lot of this is bad back of the envelope. You're talking
just kind of
about
like, just kind of
40
ballpark.
40 cents. 40 cents on the tax rate.
Add 40 cents on.
Yeah.
At 680?
The 680, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of everything's kind of right around there. We could get more detailed or tell you what that impact to the average single-family home is if that's something you're interested in. We could definitely do that. And
There's 5.25% interest rate, is that relatively stable, is that?
unfortunately, that's the hard thing with the bond bank. We don't know until they actually go out. So when you get it approved at town meeting, we have what was quoted back in July, and we can get updated numbers as we approach a public hearing, but it's not until they actually put the bonds out that we know what the actual interest rate is.
So can we assume that it's going to be greater, or can we not make any assumption there? Just on historic, what it's doing now?
I know they have gone up over the last few, but I don't know if it will continue to or not.
Kind of hard to assume.
Yeah, I know, I just thought I'd ask, I know. But sometimes they trend for 2 or 3 years, slowly up or slowly down.
Jim, can I add something to
Sure.
answer to your question?
Please.
Based on the financial assessment that we had done for the community, we anticipate being able to raise at minimum 10% of the project cost. And that's without, we haven't explored gifts from large businesses outside of the community that we might be able to get. And we've not completed the research projects or the research around potential grants as well.
Didn't you estimate that you could raise $750,000?
Yeah.
Did that include what you just said, big donors and everything? That's
That's
an assumption?
outside of big
Outside of big donors?
That's just an assessment of the community.
Okay.
When you're looking at what's in front of you is what you gotta look at, though. Because what's gonna go before the voters
Right.
is what we're looking at, not what's on the come, what might be happening or what we may get in the future,
Yeah, but,
Any questions? Mark?
Nope, good.
No? You've seen it?
No, I've
Alice?
seen it.
No,
Alrighty. Are we looking to vote on this tonight?
I think it would benefit the trustees that you provide them clear direction. If you had a question for additional information to bring back to you on the 19th, we could bring back additional information. But the 19th is really your last meeting before the deadline to submit a petition article for a bond. So to be fair to the library trustees, I would say you would make a decision either tonight with the information that's been provided, or request additional information and make a decision whether or not you're going to propose it at the meeting on the 19th.
Great. Anybody? Nothing?
Well, I mean, are you trying to gauge everyone's?
Well, we're trying to get everybody's
Thoughts,
point,
or-
if anybody's got any more questions, we want to vote on it tonight to give them some direction of what we're thinking.
Sure.
Mike, personally, I think $7 million is too much money. I thought when we were talking about this a couple of years ago, we were like the 2 to 3 million range. Then we went up to the 6 million, now we're up to 7 million. I don't think we're in a position to fund a $7 million library project, knowing what else is out there that we have to take care of. We now know that we have people in the east part of town who are looking to do something up there, which that is life safety. We know the police department needs some upgrades, and I think that's the important stuff first. We know the school's got projects coming. I just think, does an expansion of the library need to be done, or would it be nice to be done? Absolutely, but to the tune of $7 million, I'm not going to support it. You do great work, Diane, believe me, I understand, but $7 million is a large project.
And
And we
we,
know that that's a large number. We're not denying it,
right.
but the number's gonna grow. It just continues to grow, so.
And the need isn't gonna change. I mean, the library's been the same size for 113 years, and the needs of the community have changed drastically in 113 years, and we don't have the space at this point to accommodate those needs anymore.
And at this point, we really don't know what the capital campaign looks like, if there's large donors out there or not, right? There's still a lot of places to look for money.
Absolutely.
So this will change over time as you seek out those additional revenue sources.
Yes.
Carlos, is it your contention that there may be a put off for a while, that you may be able to they may be able to collect more monies privately?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, you know, as time goes along, who knows? Maybe somebody will step up like they did with the turf field. Say, hey, by the way, I'm willing to kick $2 million towards a library. Like, you know, you can't predict those things. And so I'm not sure how we move forward.
Go ahead, Doug.
Other than sitting and waiting and seeing what happens, which is not a real solid place to work from.
And maybe Samantha can speak to it, but I thought you had addressed what donations and how those would be used, and maybe you could address that for the board.
Yeah, the donations would be used to pay back the bond. So at this point, the longer we wait, any money that we're able to raise in that waiting period is really just making up the difference of the increased cost. The cost is going to continue to go up the longer that we wait. So the plan is to raise money throughout the duration of the project, and after it's completed, to go toward paying back the bond every year.
So the additional fundraising would go towards escalating costs, is I think what I hear you saying.
But you don't have the bond to pay down.
Right.
So you're still out there raising money to go towards offsetting the cost.
Doesn't that affect fundraising, though, if the town has already bonded it for 7.2 million? Why should somebody give you money if the town's already paying it?
Don't worry about the town pay for it, is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying, if
Yeah.
the town has already approved the entire cost, why kick in $2 million when the town's already on the hook for it? I mean, that's one way of looking at it, I suppose, a cynical way, but might cross my mind.
Well, I don't think like the turf field would have happened if that guy wouldn't have stood up, come up,
Yeah, true,
you know?
true.
I don't want to be a bad guy here, but my honest opinion is, I think it's a great project. I would love to see it, but the thing that's pulling at me is the timing of this thing. And I know we need a the police department, and other big ticket items that are really more essential I mean, safety-wise anyways. I think the library is essential, and I love the library, and I love the plan. But I just want to say that that is a concern of mine, and I've asked a few people, and you know, and they kind of say, well, is it the right time now when everybody's, it's tough out there financially. I don't know, do we have to recommend one way or the other? Can it go on the, we have to recommend
Yeah,
one
it's a
way?
money article, has to have the recommendation.
We can't say without recommendation.
So I think what you have is you have the first question is, you as a select board have the ability to put the bond article forward, and then you would take then you can take a separate vote of whether or not you would recommend. I think that has created confusion in the past when a board would put forward an article and then vote against it. I think we had that happen last
Yeah,
year.
it was terrible.
And we received a lot of questions on that.
Rightfully so, yeah.
I'll make the motion that the board do not approve the bond, issuance of a bond for the library at this time.
I'll second Peter's motion.
We have any more discussion? You?
Well, yeah, I can give some thoughts, if that's okay. It's not really a discussion, but I've been an integral part of the planning process just by virtue of being in the room with them while they've been working very hard in the planning process. And I will say I've been very supportive of the board pursuing this information because it's been a 20-year endeavor of trying to get an addition onto the library. I've also been very honest with them about the fact that I may not support this moving forward as a select board member of, virtue of the way of everything that we have coming down the pipeline. But I have been able to have them persuade me, I'll say, I understand, the needs and the wants and the prioritization of the projects we have coming down the pipe. However, when we look at pushing this to the voters and giving them a voice, and if this is something that they want, I think that as I've seen the feedback from the surveys and people who were very openly against it and people who are very openly for it, that's kind of my hindrance on this, is that I think that we should give it to the community to look at. I do know, and they might get mad at me for saying this, but historically bond articles for libraries fail when they go on the ballot, and it gives those people the ability, whoever's working on the project, the ability to take that statistical information, fundraising information, and data from putting it out there and having open community discussions about it at public hearing and deliberative session. Now that's very beneficial for them to know what's the next step of their planning process, whether it's cut down the renovation, really make it more absolute structural necessities versus nice things like the community room, and kind of change their strategic planning with it. So, I think similarly, we know we have big things coming down the road, but that's really, from a financial standpoint, it's difficult for me to support it, again, knowing all of those things, but talking about it here and now, knowing that prices are going to increase with everything that we're talking about, I'm inclined to give it to the voters to let them decide if it's something that they want to do or not. So I've been very honest with them throughout the entire process of, this is
I'm
gonna
sure
be
they
a
appreciate
tough
that.
sell. Yeah, I've been very, probably
Brutally honest.
probably sometimes painfully honest with them about this, but, yeah, so that's where I'm at. I've had to think really long and hard about this because I support them and all the work they've put forward and the project of itself, in and of itself, but, it's a tough spot for us financially, obviously. And I think there is value, though, for us putting it forward to the voters. And I understand the putting it forward and the recommendation of us to support or not support in the juxtaposition that creates. But, you know, we've consistently done that with larger items in that way, so.
Mm-mm. No,
What,
we
letting
haven't
people vote on
consistently
it?
Put something out there without a recommendation on it.
No, I'm saying bigger projects to let people vote on, you know, like the
Right,
fields.
but we always have a recommendation on it, except for the one time that it came back to bite us. So,
So-
knowing what you just said about taking it to the voters first, there's also, you've heard in the past where it comes back again and again until they kind of get it pushed, and then it gets a bad rap after that.
It could.
So
yeah.
sometimes you're better off reevaluating your project and then come in with something a little bit different. They've gotten our
Yeah.
feedback now, what we think, and we know that there's, Parks and Rec's got a large project, the police department's got a large project, we don't know what's gonna happen with the fire station up the other end.
Yep.
You know, they're asking for things up there, it's kinda hard to say, no, we're not gonna build you or do you know, $2 or $3 million fire station, but then go ahead and do a $7 million project at the library. That's a big slap in the face to those people, so, I mean, we need to look at the big picture, not just the library, and I hope the library people can understand that also.
Oh, I don't, that's not what I was saying, and I certainly don't disagree. I've very openly said that to them many times. But looking at today and what they've done the work to get to this point, you know, we've been talking about a police station probably equally as long as I've been on the board. So, I don't know, I've been in it, so I've had a lot of
Yep.
thoughts about it, and I just wanted to share that with you all, is that, you know, I see both value in both sides of us putting it out. That's all.
Jim?
I just have a question. Does the recommendation on the ballot have the number, say it was 4-1 or 3-2? It does, okay.
It does, yes.
So-
And because this would be an appropriation article, well, one, it's a bond article, so you have to hold a separate public hearing just on the bond issue. And that would be, whether you propose it or it comes in by petition, the governing body must hold that public hearing. And then both you and the budget committee would be able to vote to recommend or not recommend, and there would be a vote tally on the ballot.
So there is another thing too, they can do a petition article, if they, to do what Kelly wants to do, all they gotta do is get the signatures together and do a petition article.
true.
And that does what Kelly's asking.
Well, I mean, I didn't ask anything, I was just saying those
I'm
were my
just,
thoughts.
you know what I'm just saying, it gets it to the front of the voter. But it's still gonna have a recommendation from us, whether it's,
So even if we say no, they can do the petition?
they can still do that, but then we'll be voting on it again, yes or no. But right now, we're talking about whether we wanna put this on the ballot. They can do that by petitioned article, then we would vote on it again, whether we wanna support that article.
So there's no question in my mind, Peter, that our library is a very, very valuable asset to our community, as it is to most communities. There's also very little doubt in my mind that it needs upgrading for a community of our size. And I will give credit to the folks from the library for doing great work to research it and set a path forward to bring this forward, because they've done great work and brought information forward to us, so kudos to them for that. However, I still got to go back to the timing issue. I mean, these are tough times. We had a tough time struggling with this budget and what we were going to bring forward to the voters. And I'm sorry, but I just don't think the time is right. It hurts me to say that, because I'd love nothing more to see a nice, shiny, brand-new addition on the library downtown. It's in the center of town. I think it's a shining beacon of what our community's all about. But boy, oh boy, it's a big-ticket item. It is a very big-ticket item, and these are tough times, so that gives me great angst.
Mark, did you wanna say anything? You all set?
I'm good.
Jim, you all set?
Yep.
Cal? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to not recommend this article. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, in favor, yeah.
Pardon me?
Okay. No, you're good.
Are you opposing?
No,
Abstaining?
no.
So the motion passes?
Yep.
Well. Sorry.
Before I go, as a gesture of goodwill and in the spirit of transparency between our two boards, I do want to make you aware that the board has voted to move forward with a petitioned article in the event that we are unsuccessful in getting your
Figured they
support
would.
tonight.
It's a
Yep.
good move.
Good.
Fair enough.
Okay. So, thank
Then
you
it,
very
then
much.
it clearly leaves it up to the voters on how they want to
Yep.
spend their money.
And that's our goal,
Yep.
is to
Yep.
leave it to the voters and get their feedback
Yep.
and understand that our path forward.
Fully support that.
Good.
Excellent.
I just, hold on, Samantha, if you.
Go ahead.
mind. I just also, would you mind sharing a little bit, the last meeting, I very selfishly made them do a pros and cons list.
Yeah.
And I just would, I just would really love for you to share with the board some of the potential outcomes of
Sure.
you all still moving forward, because I think it's good for them to hear,
Yeah.
and kind of the things I was stuck on still.
So some of the pros that we had listed out in moving forward, we're getting an accurate vote count. We have a pretty good idea of who supports the project, but there are also those two identified groups who doesn't support it and who's kind of in the middle. It gives us marketing insight and allows us to understand the work that we need to do moving forward to engage with the community. It will keep the project with a momentum. In the last 20 years, this project has kind of stopped and started over and over again, and so we'd like to continue moving forward and not lose that trajectory that we've made thus far. And it keeps it visible in the community, so it's top of mind for folks and they don't forget about it.
Keep it in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Good enough. Anything else? Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott? We're at tab 5, 5A.
Hello.
No.
How are we all tonight?
Fine.
All right, so I have a couple of,
Just for the people, this is Scott Bartlett. Go ahead. I just want to make sure your name got up there.
yeah, Scott Bartlett, Town Assessor. So I do have a couple of memos before you for some recommendations for 3 warrant articles. First one is something that we had talked about before, the elderly exemption, increasing the amounts of the exemption to pretty much be in line with the expected increases we're going to see in assessments. I don't expect the increase in the assessment amount, or the exemption amounts, to cause an increase in the tax rate, because it's matching what I'm seeing. Basically, I expect about, I think I had about a 55% increase in the average value of a single-family home. And that's approximately what I've recommended for the increase in the amounts of the exemptions. I've also, at the same time, recommended an increase in the income limits. I did look at a couple of different things when I was making my recommendation. One was COLA, cost of living increases. And then I also looked at what I consider to be similar towns in New Hampshire, basically towns that have the same, about the same population as we do. I think there was 8 towns that I was looking at. That's on page 4 of the memo. So when I was looking at that, I did notice that our amounts were a little bit higher than the average for income limits, but at the same time, our exemptions are a little bit lower. So I think that the net result is that we have a few more elderly exemptions, or elderly that qualify, but we're not giving quite as much as some of the other towns, so I believe it equals out in the end. Essentially what I've done is recommended a $5,000 increase to each of the income limits. Single was $37,500. I've recommended increasing that to $42,500. For a married couple, it was $55,000, and I've recommended increasing that to $60,000. We did increase both of these limits in 2018. We did not increase the asset limit in 2018. We kept that at $150 back in 2018. So I am recommending increasing that to $180,000, which was essentially the average of the towns that I looked at. So that's number one. Do you want me to go on to the other ones, or do you want to ask some questions about the elderly exemption?
Why don't we do
first?
one at a time? Let's do this elderly exemption first.
Okay.
Anybody got any questions on this one? Understand it? Everybody understand it? Jim?
I'm looking at the warrant article itself. And you just talked about what the income exemptions are, income limits are, that's pretty clear. But the first part up there is, I don't think anybody, well, not anybody, certainly more astute people could understand what that means. It's just unclear how that would work. So if somebody read that, I'm afraid, and it happens all the time, I look at some of these things, I have no idea what they're talking about. Is there any way you can change this so it's clearer what the 76.5, is that an increase into, and what is it, an increase of? So like, it's clear, with the income, the net income has to be that's clear, but I don't think the first part is the people will know what they're doing, what they're.
I believe that I really can't change the language. I can make some explanations that we can put in the voter's guide. This pretty much comes right from statute.
So unfortunately, this is the approved language that NHDRA, who does the review,
But we can
provides.
put something, I think it
We
would
can, we can put items out there in the voter's guide as well as,
Yeah.
So we can get the information out that it's an increase on the exemption amount and all that. But this is really the required language.
Okay,
we have
I
to
get
put.
that, but as long as we can, I think it would be helpful.
And we'll
to
have
put
an
that.
opportunity to review and comment on the voter's guide.
Yes, you do that after the deliberative
Yeah.
session, once
Right,
the
okay.
warrant articles have been set.
All right.
That'd be helpful.
I mean, in the memo, I did discuss what it was before. So like the 65 to 74 was $50,000.
Yeah, but I mean, somebody coming into the voting booth,
Well, I understand that. And that's always going to be a little bit difficult.
Right.
I think one of the things that is important to let people know is this warrant article will not increase taxes. Okay, because all it's doing is keeping everything equal. If I'm raising most values by 55%, I have to raise the exemptions by a similar amount so that it's neutral, essentially.
We will make that eminently clear in the voter's guide.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's all. I don't disagree with what you got here, I just think it needs to be.
Scott?
clear for the voter.
Just a request of that, Scott, you gave some really great information on what the potential tax implications might be by noting that it's the lowest it's been since 2017 and all of that. I know in the past when we've changed it, increased or lowered it, that was always my question of, sure, that sounds great, but what kind of impact will this have? So if you could please just make sure that information's included for the deliberative session and in the voter's guide. I think that's a really important piece.
And I'll be honest with you, that's very difficult to estimate.
Absolutely, yep.
I can give you some sense of the number of people that I have essentially turned away. I have not received an application that I ended up denying because they were over the limits. But I have had a couple people come in, I've talked to them, and said, yeah, I'm over. I think I had 1 or 2 exemptions that I actually removed over the last couple of years because they were now over the limits. That's about it.
Yeah, I meant more so just the utilization rates of how many residents we have applying for this, if that's at all possible. Just trying to get a gauge of, so we can explain the kind of impact that this would have and why it would be beneficial for us to do it.
Okay.
Just
I'll
a
be honest
request,
with
I'm
you,
not asking for
the number
anything,
of
so.
applications has gone down.
Right,
over the
yeah, no, I
years.
read that, and I just thought that was really great, and I would love
Yeah.
if we could include that in the
Sure.
talking points that we get further down the road.
Yep,
Thank you.
yep, very good.
Next one would be the veterans tax credit.
Well, why don't we do
I'm sorry.
Can you, would you mind voting to approve that language for the warrant? It's the upper one, the elderly exemption warrant article language. It's 4 pages in after 5A.
Do you have to read it?
No, as presented. If
I'll
you
make a motion that we approve the elderly exemption warrant article as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Collis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
I wasn't gonna do it if I had to read all.
Would you mind if I went to the blind exemption next?
Sure.
Because I had
It's
It's the
discussed,
same pack, same.
yeah, I discussed that in the same memo.
Oh, okay.
As the elderly exemption. The blind exemption has been $15,000, which is the minimum in statute. And it's been that amount forever, as long as we've had it. And I don't know how long it is. It's definitely longer than I've been here. This is one of the ones I inherited. The blind exemption is, I think we have 9. We don't have a lot. But I am recommending increasing this as well. Now, the recommended increase is a little bit more than the 55%, and that's mostly because we have not adjusted this in well over 15 years. Again, it was at the minimum. So that's why I recommended the $25,000, just a nice round number.
Any discussion on that one? Want to make a motion, Klaus?
Yeah, I'll make a motion as it's presented.
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Any further discussion on the blind exemption warrant article? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Okay.
Now you go to the veterans.
The veterans is kind of a surprise. We got a TIR, Technical Information Release, from the Department of Revenue Administration, informing us because they changed the definition of a veteran that qualifies for the veterans tax credit. Because of that, we are required to readopt. If we do not readopt, what will happen is we'll go to the standard, which is $50 for a veteran's tax credit. Right now, we're at $500. We've been at $500 for at least 10 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. The maximum is $750 now. That increased, I believe last year, they increased that maximum to $750. We actually had a warrant, well, I take that back. It wasn't on the veterans credit, it was actually on the disabled. So we haven't had any requests to increase that. Now, one of the things I had discussed when we last met was the possibility of increasing the $500 maybe to $600 or something a little bit more. I am not recommending that right now because I'm terrified of the idea of anything we put forward does not pass. If it doesn't pass, what is going to happen is the veterans will be getting $250 credit on the first bill, and they'll get a minus $200 credit on the second bill. I want to avoid that at all possible.
So just leave it alone.
So that's why I'm recommending leaving it at $500, asking you to support us readopting it, and then in the future, if you wanted to increase it to another amount, we could do that. But right now, maintain the status quo. And again, I think that we'd put something in the voters' guide, very strongly telling them this is not, again, this is not increasing the tax rate. This is just maintaining what we currently have. I believe it was a mistake at the legislative level not to put in some type of a clause saying that if you had already adopted it, you're not going to, but that didn't happen. The DRA has made it very clear that they're going to be reviewing this in November when we go for our tax rate. If we don't adopt this, it will force us to use that standard of only $50.
So you're looking for a motion to readopt the current veterans tax credit?
Correct.
And Peter, I'll make that motion. I do not want to see a reduction in our veterans
Okay.
tax credit.
I'll second that.
Just one thing before we go any further. The second paragraph that I put in there, I do not believe we can put that in the actual warrant article.
I'm sorry, the second
I was going to
paragraph?
ask you that. Due to
Yeah,
a
where it
change in
says
the-
due to a change in New Hampshire statute,
Oh, yeah.
okay? I do not believe we can put that in the warrant article. Okay, so it would just be the first paragraph that we'd be able to put in the warrant article, but I had put that there just to re-emphasize the importance of getting this passed.
But the gist of your request is to maintain the current,
Readopt it.
readopt the current veterans tax credit.
That's my motion.
Collis made the motion, who seconded it? Jim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. All set, Scott?
I'm all set.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
We'll probably be making a request soon, in a month or so, to meet again to talk about my progress on the update, but we don't need to talk about that yet
Yep.
today.
Thanks, Scott. Chief?
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good evening.
Evening, Chief.
I'm here tonight to discuss with you the Fire Station 17 warrant article and funding.
Are we all familiar with what brought this about, right? Okay.
So back in March of 2022, the town of Goffstown ballot warrant article number 22, which was a petitioned warrant article, was submitted. That was Article 22. And the article stated, shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 for the purpose of a study to bring Station 17 to current safety standards, and the sum to come from the unassigned fund balance, and no amount to be raised by taxation. Again, it was submitted by petition, I'm sorry, and it was not recommended by the board 5-0-0, and it was recommended by the budget committee 7-2-0. The warrant article passed. The vote was 1,005 yes and 829 votes no. And this warrant article actually initially came in at 200,000, and it was brought down to 20,000. So I went back and I looked at the entire history of Fire Station 17, which you'll see in your package. And it was built in 1975, and it's 47 years old. So it's been included in a number of fire station improvement reports or infrastructure. I found 11 different documents, plans, studies, from way back in 2006-07 timeframe up to today. And just a quick examples for the people at home. There was a UNH Goffstown Fire Station renovation and design in 2003. There was a Town of Goffstown new fire station feasibility and design study back in 2009. There's been hazardous material survey reports, water tests. There was a Goffstown Fire Department self-assessment of operations and staffing in 2016. And then a select board established Fire Station Improvement Committee from March 2012 with a final report in 2014. So in all of those various studies that were out there, there is a common factor, and basically for the most part, it comes down to the fire station being its age and its condition requires almost a complete redo, if you were, and it's obsolete in many ways as far as energy efficiency, water, HVA systems, and the building in itself is 1,760 square feet. And it was, when it was built, it was designed as a volunteer, if you will, fire station. So it consists of an office, 2 bathrooms, and the 2 stalls. So when you go and look at that, and then you consider other non-facility related considerations, you would have to think about if you're going to use that facility, what would you need in the future? And I know the former fire chief stated in front of a public hearing that you'd have to staff it, and in order to staff it, you would have to go with NFPA standards to staff it 24 hours a day with at least a minimum of 3 people. What's that? Oh, I thought you said something. So, basically, based on an estimate of $105,000 per firefighter, that's today's dollar, and the need for it, that could be 12 people of staff, that you're talking about $1.26 million to staff it.
That's just for staffing.
That's just the staffing. The estimated total cost to renovate and construct apparatus bays at Station 17. In your packet, there is a previous study under the Fire Station Improvement Program, and it showed a rendering of Station 17. But what was most important is they were recommending going from a 1,760 square foot building to 6,040 square feet, and the projected cost back then was $1.14 million. So with the escalation from that time, it's quite significant.
I'm sorry, Chief, so what's the estimated construction cost in today's dollars?
I didn't work that out. I do have a spreadsheet which shows it, but I think you're talking at least $4 to $5 million.
And you're talking 1.26 million for staffing costs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The other thing that would need to be considered is the CIP program. As you know, currently Station 19 is the only fire department building listed on the capital improvement program for the fire department. So if you were to do anything with Station 17, that would have to go through the CIP process and be given a priority amongst all the other current CIP projects that are in place. I added another piece about the response time for Station 17 district, because when this first came about in a petition warrant article, there were people that were, concerned because of its geographic location and the response times. And given back when we did not have 24-hour, 7 days a week staffing of 6 people, we relied on a call volunteer fire system. If there was a fire call at night, the call would have to be taken, dispatched. It would take call firefighters time to get up from their house, drive to the fire station, get all their equipment and wait for others. So at times, there could be 10, 15-minute response times. So then, when EMS calls started to increase, the fire department started staffing overnight coverage with 2 EMTs, and that helped a little. However, they ran into a couple years there where they couldn't get people to staff as EMTs at night, so that further made the problem worse. So when you look at all of that, though, the demographics and the growth of the fire department has, by its change of where we are now, improved response time to all areas of the town. And even in Station 17, because you're now staffed 24 hours a day, the call is processed a lot quicker, the call goes out immediately, and the crews are on duty, and they jump in the apparatus and they respond. So I did show you some response statistics and a graph which covers from 2018 to 2022, and for the most part it goes along with the table below it. So in 2018, the average response time from the time of the alarm to their arrival at a call for Station 17 district was 7.7 minutes. 2019 was 7.2. 2020 was 8.2. That's when they, in that time period with help. And for 2022 so far, we're at about 5 minutes, and 9 seconds, but, you know, we're not done the year yet, so. So there is a increasing improvement in the responses up to that area. I included a GIS aerial map of Station 17, and this just shows you the footprint that is there now. And that lot consists of some hilly areas, some minor wetlands, and the small building and paved area that is there now. If you look at the fire station improvement program, like I said, there was a conceptual, very conceptual drawing made of the fire station, of a proposed plan, which would have been to increase the building base to 3 bays, and to build a standalone, like, office quarters, bathrooms and showers for personnel. Again, this is back in 2015. And then it goes on to basically describe what would be done to the station, converting it, installing fire sprinklers, improving the current septic system, replacing a contaminated well. So there's no major hazardous materials up there, no asbestos. There is arsenic in the water, and it does not meet EPA certified levels. But so they don't drink from the water, they haven't used it. Matter of fact, the water's been off in the building, in most parts of the building, since 2016. And then I included for you the map plot and tax record for it. And then there's also, I included a response map, and if you look at the response map, it shows both 4-minute and 8-minute response times. So some of the districts cross over each other and help to meet or at least get closer to you know, an 8-minute response time. So in summary, Fire Station 17, it is a vital part of the overall fire and EMS protection in the community, as well as a facility for the delivery of the emergency services. It is in an important geographical location as part of the whole emergency services that we deliver. And I believe it should be a continued part of the community in the delivery of emergency services. It also plays a vital role with our public protection classification from ISO. This is the organization which provides community insurance underwriters with data and reports that assist in the development of insurance rates for the particular areas. Then, based on my review of previous studies and recommendations, as well as we had a complimentary visit from a local architectural firm that does public safety projects, and they too came to the conclusion, look, it's 47 years old, it's in failure and obsolete for the purpose that it was built in 1975. But it has served well for over 30 years. So in order to bring this up to a modern facility to comply with fire life and safety standards, as well expanding the facility to accommodate operations and staffing, 365 days a year, you potentially would need a new facility. And in order for that to happen, that would have to go through, again, the board, the capital improvement, and then ultimately to the voters. However, in consulting with this architectural firm who looked at 17, they also said there's other potential options that could be considered for that design of that fire station. It doesn't necessarily have to be a traditional construction block, cement block construction. There are a lot of design and building of pre-engineered metal buildings that are out there that are cost effective. And they can also be aesthetically designed so that it looks like a fire station, especially for, you know, what that would be used in that area itself. So, really, Mr. Chairman, we come down to, you know, what is the will of the board to do with the $20,000 warrant article? As I showed you in my document, it's been well studied. It clearly shows it's an obsolete building. So I would have, my suggestion would be for the board to consider authorizing the fire chief to seek a request for proposals from firms that have experience in public safety, facility construction, operational use planning, design, and conceptual drawings for its potential use and presenting to the board and CIP committee for consideration of future budgets. That would allow me to bring 2 or 3 firms before the board and not using a bid process, because you would end up with low bid and not necessarily get a consultant that's, you know, versed in public safety. And this would at least give you an idea of, in today's dollars, the changes in architecture and a design of what options may be there.
I think it's interesting to hear some of the stuff you just said. I served on that committee way back, and Mark was around too.
Yep.
And the steel building, do you remember who ranted and raved, that's all you had to do? Alan.
Oh, yeah.
Alan said you could, other departments had done it, you could put a steel building up there and save a ton of money. And the talk was to take the current facilities, upgrade those for just the crew facilities with no apparatus in there, and take that building and make it, you know, and then connect it like you see to the new building where they could go from the crew quarters right into it. Well, that was what was talked about a long time ago.
Right.
I don't know if Adam was, were you on at that time? Was it, Derek, were you?
No, that was before, that was when Sue was still in the seat, so.
So that went around and around for a long time.
Peter, I'm sure as we delve deeper into this, there are alternatives they can look at. They're gonna reflect drastically different construction costs and alternatives for doing things. But I'll start by saying the irony is not lost on me that we have a fire station with no water to it. I mean, that's...
Doesn't seem right, does it?
That strikes me right up front as like, what?
Domestic water, yes.
You know what I'm saying, no?
Yes.
You know, and we've heard some real general numbers here, but I think general numbers are good for this level of discussion and also good for the general public to hear, because I think they can wrap their head around general numbers more easily. And so I think I heard, and correct me, I think I heard it's going to be somewhere between 4 and 5 million for the building.
Depends on what building.
But I understand, but what you presented for a typical concrete block as you would see today.
If you were looking at the percentage that construction costs have gone up since that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So 4 to 5 million, it wouldn't surprise me if by the time we actually get around to constructing it, that didn't escalate to somewhere closer to 6 million.
Right.
And I heard 1.2 million for staffing, which brings us to 7.2 million. There's a number we've heard tonight before.
Well, how about equipment?
Well, yeah. Well,
Yeah, it doesn't even,
I'll say I didn't.
Would we take one from here, one from there, put them up there?
right.
Is that what you would do?
Well, we have one spare engine, so, you know, you could technically put it up there. But, again, you can't put it in that building, you can't put a
No,
fire engine
I'm
in
talking
that
about in the
building.
new facility.
Yes,
but my point was, we heard 7.2 million for a library, 7.2 million for a fire station. I mean, that's the big picture kind of thing.
right. That's why I think perhaps an alternative at looking at a steel building or something would, you know, would help in that arena. And again, the priority, I mean, you've got the police station project that, you have to consider. Station 19's on the CIP program for 2025 for renovation, but all the other projects you got going too, so.
We need to get a whiteboard that listed all the projects and estimated
Numbers.
so we can take a look at it and say, oh, go ahead, Kelly.
All right, I have a bunch of things.
Go for it.
First and foremost, I think that it was the will of the voters to do an exploration of this building to see what it is, so I think we have to do that. But I'm looking at this chart of response times, and I'm still not quite convinced that this is a necessary thing for us to do, because you're showing on here that the response is the same from Station 17 as the call times are from Station 18, or they would be. So how are we what kind of improvement?
So,
And what's, go ahead.
So I just caution you though, statistics are statistics, and they're based on, it depends on what is the time of day, where the crews. I can tell you that, and I meant to put it in the report, obviously Station 17 district is the lowest of the districts, amount of calls. Station 19 is the highest, followed by 18. So what this is, what it's basically proving, and I've got the raw data.
I'd love to see that.
It's thousands of files.
Yeah, that's great. I'm great at Excel.
Yeah, and, but it, it clearly shows that the overall response time has gone down,
Right.
or faster than it used to be.
So that's kind of what I'm looking at, is how many calls we have in that area and how quickly we're responding to that, because I'm in no way, shape, or form not saying that that might not be necessary. Obviously, public safety, I think, for all of us is a huge concern, but to spend $8 million, whatever the number is, on a station, I want to be able to justify that with statistics. Not only, you mentioned fire, life, and safety standards.
Right.
For the community. What is that? Is that something that, square footage of the town of Goffstown, we should have a certain amount of response facilities? I want data and information to make any kind of decision on this whatsoever. Because again, I'm saying whatever it is, I'll obviously be in support of providing safety, but if we're accomplishing that with our 24/7 schedule and our response times, are we kind of already solving the issue of this community feeling like they might not be responded to in time? That's what I'm getting at.
Let me tell you a little story, maybe Mark probably better at telling the story, but there was a fire up there in one of the Spices not too long ago.
Yep.
And what's his name went over to 17, grabbed the truck by himself.
You had to drive by it,
Yeah,
and then there was one firefighter that responded to the scene by himself. I mean, and by today's statutes and standards, according to the NFPA numbers, you don't go to a fire with just one person. You need to have at least 3 on a piece of fire apparatus so that you can respond to the call. I mean, I don't even remember he didn't do much of anything except maybe shuttle water, or they took the engine, they brought it to the dry hydrant and pumped water out of the dry hydrant with it, but.
And back when I was here, and they staffed Station 17 with one person, 8 hours a day, and the instruction to that firefighter there was, if there's a fire, take the truck to the fire,
we'll meet you there.
break the window, put the thing in pump and knock it down as much, just don't go inside, so, yeah.
Right, but, yeah,
And you've had, in the last 2 or 3 years, you did have 3 structure fires up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
but all I'm getting, I'm not denying that there's a need for us to protect that area of our community, by no means. I'm just saying, now that we've switched to 24/7 and they're able to respond from those buildings immediately, has that increased the response time to an appropriate amount of response that we're providing to the rest of the community?
So I think what your question is, if you have a station there and the response time is 3 minutes versus the 6 minutes, is it worth it?
exactly. I don't know what the standards are.
That's
So-
pretty much the question, right?
But as I
Right,
was
that's
saying
what- yeah,
before
that's what I asked.
too, it gets more and more complicated because, let's say you've got a crew up there, an ambulance crew, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, statistically, our back-to-back calls are up around 60%, right? So-
It's happening more and more and
Yep,
more.
so then you ask, how long are they really gonna be at that station, or are we using them somewhere else too? And again, I'm not.
But
I'm
that
not-
goes to any of our stations, though.
Right,
That
I'm
doesn't-
not against it either. It's-
But that's, I mean, yes, I agree. That's something that we should consider when we're talking about this. But that's not to say that there aren't other parts of our community that would also like a station in their neighborhood too. So to justify doing this, I think we should, for all of us, be able to say, here's the data, the statistics, and the reasoning why we're going to spend this much money. Because we have 2 stations. I don't know if that's adequate coverage or not. I'm not a professional, you are. So I need that information from you and what the standards are to say, yes, we need this, or no, we're currently adequately covering our community. I don't know the answer, but that's what I would like out of this.
The elephant in the room is we have a station here now. We already have a station here, we're just not using it.
Right, and we haven't been using it, so, I mean, that's not a
When
reason
was
to
the last time we
redo
used it? You know?
10 years, if not more.
At least.
That's what Gossett and Gilly and all them were around and were running
And
over
the
there.
the other big thing, Kelly, that the chief, he mentioned is the apparatus. Currently, the way the station is designed,
It can't fit, yeah.
we have a pitch this way and a pitch this way. The height of the apparatus is just not designed to fit into that station. And, you know, we only have, I think, just engine 4, engine 6, the only 2 pieces left. And if it's engine 6, it's gotta be in the fire bay, and engine 4 fits in the other bay, but,
Right.
No,
Engine
I'm
4 is
aware.
really the only one that.
yeah, yeah.
So the question is, we had $20,000. We want to spend the $20,000 of hiring an engineer or an architect firm to put something together for us. Is that what your question is?
Yes.
Took us that long to get there. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I was gonna say, that's what the warrant article says, spend $20,000 to bring, for a study, to bring 17 to current safety standards. So,
Well, it's not going to be current, so you can't bring it up to current station. You're
that's
going
what
to
the
build a new
warrant
station,
article, that's
pretty
what the
much.
warrant article says, so,
The warrant article
Okay,
passed.
so let's do it,
right,
right?
it passed,
So
right.
I'll make the motion, we take the $20,000 that's currently in place to have the chief move forward on doing a study to create a
Plan.
plan or a safe work environment building that will be suitable for the fire service.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any further discussion? Now, this isn't authorizing us to build a new fire station. This is
Right.
just
Let's be
authorizing
clear,
us to
let's be clear
study.
about that.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And I'll be more than glad to,
Yeah.
you know, get with you and show you a lot of those statistics. We have them all. So,
Yeah, that would be great.
thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Chief?
Is the chief gonna do the,
Chief, can you
Holiday
stay
light
around?
stuff?
Yeah. So we have, there are 2 other items that the fire chief has, they're donations, and maybe you can speak to them real quick.
Which one's first?
We will do
You got the
the-
holiday lighting at 18 and 19 for $1,736.
So, the Hudson Firefighters Relief Association has donated 2 sets of lights for Station 18 and 19. I don't know if you noticed, they brought in a company in the last few years and have done them. They've decided that, to donate the cost of those and put them up instead of having a company do it. So they donated those lights.
We're gonna use basically the tower ladder, and we're gonna donate the manpower to put the lights to the station and get them
I
fitted.
thought the guy was doing no.
No.
Lights Up isn't doing it, he's just supplying the lights up?
Yeah.
The lights, I mean?
So it's a training opportunity?
Right.
Great.
Instead of him doing it, we're gonna do it.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation of holiday lighting from the Goffstown Fire Relief Association. With the select board thanks and appreciation, the value of the donation is $1,736.
Second. No.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Collis. Any further,
I'm just gonna recuse myself because I'm on the board for that particular, that one there.
any further discussion?
Conflict.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, Mark's abstaining.
Are you abstaining or recusing?
What's the difference?
Recusing is not part of the, is not part of the vote at all. Abstaining is choosing not to vote.
Okay, recuse himself then. And then you got the holiday wreath?
Yes, Lieutenant Ryan Hooper asked to donate the wreaths for the front of the fire engines, which we consistently have every year. I've asked the board to accept those.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation of wreaths from Lieutenant Ryan Hooper. The select board's thanks and appreciation for a value of $115.
Seconded by Jim. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Derek, you done with your stuff?
I think we just had to do end of year encumbrances, the
Yeah.
draft list, and I'll have Danielle come
Well, I
up
still
with
got over here, accepted donations, Parks and Rec.
it. You did that one, that was $1,000
Oh,
from.
that's right, I'm sorry. So we're doing encumbrance, 2022 draft encumbrance list. 7F.
There's two parts, but they're alternating, so you take one stack,
And this one?
nope, this one with it, yeah, and then pass the whole stack over.
Take this. Take the first,
Just the whole thing, yeah.
That's yours too.
Lance, good one next.
Is there extra ones here?
Yeah, Mark and Derek, and I think I had a few extras.
It's the same thing. I get it, so I'm not
You
getting-
grabbed.
Oh, you might have grabbed two, I alternate, yeah, there's, the second page is loose, the first two is stapled. Okay. So I apologize, the formatting's a little different on the 22 portion, but this is just the draft. So the first document you're looking at is the 2022, it's the 2 pages stapled together. That's currently what we have in the system. And there are a few things that are going to be removed before we get to the final copy next week. But there were some question marks about whether or not invoices would be in time and whether items that were ordered or back ordered or would be here. So I left everything that's in the system on the list unless we'd specifically identified it as able to be removed and closed out.
I see Bigfoot on here, but we just paid a bunch signed bills tonight for Bigfoot.
Yes, this is still what was remaining. I don't know if they still have invoices. That's something that I'm going to be finalizing with DPW this week.
Okay.
Should you clarify it's for material crushing, the company?
What?
I was
Yeah.
making a Bigfoot joke.
That Bigfoot joke?
And there are a few things that I know, we have noted. The cruisers, for instance, the graphics have been installed. We're waiting for the invoice, so we do expect that one will be off the list by next week. That one's third from the bottom. So right now, we're looking at about 2.1 in encumbrances. And then if there's any specific questions or anything you want me to connect with the department heads about on this current list, that way I can bring back any answers next week.
The cruiser outfitting, that's for the,
That's for the ones we just got, the lights, the bars, everything.
so we haven't got a bill for that yet.
No, because we just picked up the cruisers and sent them for graphics and then moved them from graphics up to outfitting.
Okay.
So I don't think that'll be done this year. Yeah,
Do we have?
might be January. We weren't sure, so we just didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle.
Do we have encumbrance for street sweeping for the spring in here? Or do
We
not do
have-
that?
We have some street sweeping. This is actually for this year's only between January and December. There was some additional street sweeping that was done this fall.
Okay, maybe
so-
that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to make sure that, since it was on a PO, that all those invoices are paid before we remove it. So Adam and I were just comparing notes back there too to make sure if there's some things we can remove, we will.
I just thought we had one more, but it must have been that one. Thank you.
And we do have two things that aren't listed here that I would be bringing forward for your consideration next week as well. And that would have to do with the special articles that were discussed tonight for Station 17, as well as the special article for the ventilation and sprinklers at DPW. Those were both individual articles last year. Station 17 was the 20,000, and then the sprinklers 250,000. At this point, we didn't have language in the articles to make it non-lapsing, so we would have to have the board take action separately on those if we're going to carry that money forward to next year.
Danielle or Adam, can you save me from going to Google? What are niche columbarium?
Columbarium, that's for the cemetery. So it's the outdoor housing for them to be able to put
Cremation.
cremations
got it.
into.
I saw one just go up, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the one
You
I
knew
think
what it
we're
was?
expecting an invoice.
It
well-
was at least columbarium.
No, but that's what I guessed because I just saw the one that they just put up over
Yeah.
there this week, so.
Yeah, and that's a phased project, so there'll be more of them going in the next year. And since those did get delivered, I'm expecting that we'll be able to pull that one off.
Do we need action?
No,
Not
this is-
specifically, this is just a
really an
draft.
opportunity of questions, or if you see something between now and next meetings, if you can reach out to Danielle or the appropriate department head, because we are going to be having a finalized list for you next week to sign.
And
What's the
then,
normal amount we carry over?
So I was looking at last year's draft, and what we had for last year's draft, at this time, we had about, let me just make sure I'm looking at this right. We had $1.5 million, and then, let me see if I can find the signature one. I think, again, the first one gives us an opportunity to kind of catch and double check, and then the one that was approved on the 20th was, let's see,
the final signed one,
was just under $1.5 million for the
Yep.
2021 encumbrances that got moved forward.
right.
Kelly?
I think if we could just keep, like we've done in the past, where you kind of keep updating us on what bills have come in and whatnot, that would be really helpful, because I know a lot of stuff is backlogged right now too, and stuff is delayed. I do have one question, the network refresh program, when is that gonna happen?
So those were switchers that were ordered, and they're waiting for those switches to arrive.
Okay,
Those were
great.
back ordered because they're
So if-
special item.
I know it's a lot of stuff, but if you could add little notes like that for us, that would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the second page you have that's not stapled, that's the information that you normally see for information that's non-lapsing purchases, and then the prior year POs that were encumbered that are still active. So those lists have shrunk down considerably. The non-lapsing ones you're seeing are both grant funded, the radio project and the scanning of tax maps. That scanning of the tax maps is closing out. We're working on doing the final reconciliation now. But until we get that finalized, it's on the list. And then the prior year POs that are still out there, you can see the list is getting shorter. We do have one from 2020 that's related to the Munis software, Tyler Technologies. We ran into some issues this year where in order to do that project, which we did contract for, we have to finalize some of the other pending projects like the forms upgrade and the version upgrade and things like that before we can fully implement that. So it's kind of been on standstill for a little bit, which is why you see only about half of it's been expended.
Continental always behind.
Yeah, Continental likes to do their billing at the very end of the year. Seems like they all come in together.
This guy save it for spring vacation or something, I don't know.
So that's the encumbrance list where it stands. Since we're talking about funding and things carrying forward, just to kind of piggyback on the discussion about Station 17, is that motion also to waive the bidding process and have the chief bring forward specific, I know he'd mentioned going out and seeking specific public safety focused firms to present options.
There's not a lot of money there. I don't really think that's an issue, do you?
I just want to make sure because our policy says if it's over a certain threshold, so I just wanted to make sure that I understood the intention correctly.
That alone makes you up all that money.
Pardon me?
That alone makes you up all that money.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was to let him just, he
Okay,
had somebody had already talked to him, maybe gonna help him out
Yeah.
or give us some info, that would be great.
okay.
Anything else?
None of this, no?
That's it.
Any new business?
Yes, there is
I
one
got that, I
item.
see that. We have, Kelly, you're on this one, right?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So Derek, do you want to talk about the history, because you did a lot of research on?
I was able to find something real quick, for those who may not be familiar. Starting in the 70s, students from Japan would come to Goffstown for 3 weeks, and then in the late 80s and then the early 1990s, there was quite a bit of activity having those students come to the select board meetings, and there was actually a couple meetings where the mayor of Kunitachi, Tokyo, Japan, would come and meet with them. So there's 2 big boxes kind of under the table in your office of memorabilia and photographs and
So every time I clean up in that room, I often think it's a shame that this stuff is sitting here not being utilized in
Displayed or-
any way. And it's also kind of just sitting in boxes, in the way a little bit. So I took it upon myself to reach out to the Historical Society to see if they would be interested or willing to create some sort of display to memorialize this interaction that we've had, this, what do we call it, sisters?
Sister City.
Yes, sister cities. And they said that they would be interested, and because of the fact that those things were gifted to the town, we would have to make an approval to donate those items, or temporarily,
I think I said lend, and we would come up with
temporarily
just
lend
to
or
They're
whatever.
still the property of the town, but
Right, and the Historical Society said that they would be willing to put forth a display at the Historical Society to showcase the boxes full of things. There's letters, there's different kinds of gifts in those boxes, there's photos, all kinds of things. So I asked Eric to bring this forward so that we, as a board, could decide if we wanted to do that, and if so, make the motion to lend the items to the Historical Society so they could start that process.
Do you need a vote on that?
that would be appreciated, yes, yeah.
Make the motion.
Sure. I'll make the motion that we lend items from our sister city, I don't want to butcher it, in Tokyo, Japan, to the Goffstown Historical Society with the intention of putting forth a display.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, the motion passes.
Peter, just as an aside, Derek, you may or may not have noticed there's also a box there with some historical information relative to the acquisition and development of the Glen Lake waterfront. I
Okay,
just might want to make sure we don't lose that, because there's some very good information.
okay, yeah, we'll make sure that we only send the items from Kunitachi over there.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go over the old business. Any progress with number 1?
Nope,
Any progress with number 2?
No.
we actually talked about it, department heads, so we may actually have some additional items to bring forward once that gets started.
Okay, and the bridge?
We should be having our next meeting, I'm hoping to have it next week.
Okay. Fee schedule?
Departments are currently looking at that.
When do we expect to have that?
Probably the first meeting in January.
Okay.
I would not put it on next week, but bring a draft to you.
And then we've got some vehicles that are still out.
Yes.
Heater core and water pump. Are we doing that in-house or is it,
Yes, it's back in service.
it's back in service?
For the ambulance?
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's back. And then one still at Grapponi.
Chief, the other's still at Grapponi?
Yes.
Adam, how long is your stuff gonna be out, you know?
I'd like to think within 2 weeks. The trailer's been at Donovan. The third item, I think I didn't have the note on there, it's at Donovan Spring for suspension work.
Yeah, there's nothing there, it just says it's a floor.
We checked on Friday and it hadn't even made it into the, takes up basically the whole day, but hasn't made it in yet, so we'll kind of.
All right, great. Anybody got any questions? Anything else? Anybody else here for a public, whoop,
I almost neglected to bring this up.
almost.
Yeah, I did email out to the board earlier that Mary LaValle, a longtime employee of the town of Goffstown, passed away over the weekend. She was employed for 22 years, worked in our assessing and building department. I shared the obituary, and you do have a card in your office. The request is to close town hall to the public on Friday from 11 a.m. to 2:30 to allow town hall employees to attend the funeral. We have 15 employees that worked side by side with Mary, some of them her entire career, so. And then anyone that chose not to would remain here, and then we'd come up back and finish up the day.
But you wanna close town hall for a couple hours?
Yes, close town hall to the public to allow town hall employees to go attend the services.
I'll make that motion.
Seconded by Collis.
Yes, as long as we
Any
notice.
discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. Now, is there anybody here for public comment? Don't all speak at once. Nobody's here. Close public comment. Mark?
Non-public session, RSA 91A:3, 2A, compensation. Anything else?
And that's it.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Kelly. Voice vote, Mark?
Yes.
Me, yes.
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 That'll conclude tonight's public portion of the meeting. Thank you for watching.